Rabotai, B'shut Ma'alat Arav Marada Atra. We're up to the Taryag Mitzvot number 419, and that is the famous and most important of the mitzvot, Mitzvah Talmud Torah, which is a positive commandment in Parashat Va'et Hanan, as the pasuk says, V'shinantam lebanecha, which is Perek Vav pasuk Zayin. And the way the Chinuch explains the mitzvah, דהיינו שיש מצוות עשה ללמוד חוכמת התורה. We have an obligation to study the wisdom of the Torah וללמדה, and then also to teach it to other people. And the first purpose is כיצד נעשה המצוות ונשמור ממנה מה שמנעה האל, which means the purpose of learning Torah firstly is to know the mitzvot, to know what the positive commandments are, what's mandated upon us, and what we should refrain from, meaning the lo taseh. So it's a practical reason why you have to learn, because l'lmod al menat l'shmor v'la'asot. Furthermore, the Chinuch says a different reason. The pasuk says v'shinantam levanecha, and he learns on the word v'shinantam. That doesn't only mean to teach, but v'shinantam is milashon shinun. Shinun means to be sharp. That means she'im yish'alecha Adam davar al tehem begamgem. If somebody asks you a question on Torah, b'shinantam, you should have the answer on the tip of your tongue, which means you have to have fluency in the Torah, that you know it cold. Like somebody asks you your phone number, b'shinantam, you know the answer immediately. Al tegamgem, don't stutter and don't get flustered. So you see over here, this is a second obligation. This is if they ask you a question on any chelik in Torah. That means even things that are not practical. So the Rabbi is telling you there's two obligations of Talmud Torah. Number one, the obligation in order to fulfill the mitzvot that are practical. However, if somebody asks you a question on Ma'aseh Korbanot, if somebody asks you a question on Hilchot Melachim or Hilcheta LeMeshicha, or things that are going to apply in fighting Amalek, what do I know? It doesn't apply. Shinantam. You have to know it. Al Tegamgem. So there's two different chayuvim. One to know what you have to do, and one to know for the sake of knowing all the halakim of Torah. And the shortish of this mitzvah, again, obviously, is in order to understand the ways of Hashem. Now, there are a couple of laws when it comes to these mitzvot. Number one, a father has an obligation to teach his children. V'shinantam lebanecha. Now, even though the word lebanecha can mean your students, banim is also talmidim, but it's also referring to, obviously, the simple explanation, the biological children of a person. So the Rav starts to give some of the details of how a person is supposed to train his children. That when the child is able to speak, you're supposed to teach him the first pasuk, Torah Sivalanu Moshe, and pasuk Rishon, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. That's about 3 years old. And then you start to teach him a little until he gets to about the age of 6 or 7, depending on his intellect. And then you have an obligation to send him to Melamdei Tinokot. Melamdei Tinokot is the yeshiva, where they're going to start to teach him. Now, when he's young, you shouldn't burden the child too much with the limudim, because Torah weakens a person. Torah is draining and takes away from the koach, and a child is not yet strong enough in order to take the burden of the Torah on him. And the Rav says we're worried that he might faint or he might become weary. However, after he starts to become strong and he's able to take it, then already you're supposed to put the full weight of Torah, and you're supposed to fill him up without any hesitation. Now, if the Torah says, if let's say the father was delinquent and did not teach his son Torah, it is the responsibility of the grandfather to step in and teach Torah, at least Torah shebichtav. Furthermore, the law is, if let's say the father didn't teach the child Torah and the grandfather didn't teach him Torah, he has an obligation himself when he gets older to check himself into the yeshiva and to learn for himself. Question is now, if a father only has a certain amount of money, he can either send himself to yeshiva or his son to yeshiva. Who comes first? Rabbi Kedushim says, Ha'av kodem, the father comes first, unless the child is exceptional, that has a good memory and can retain his learning, and the father already does not have that ability, then the child goes first. Furthermore, the chiyuv of learning Torah is until the day a person dies. And even on his deathbed, he has to study Torah. As the pasuk says, Zot Torah ta'adam ki yamut be'ohel. That even when he's dying in the ohel, he still has an obligation to study Torah. Everybody is obligated to study Torah, whether he's a poor man, whether he's a rich man, whether he's healthy, whether he has affliction. Nobody has an excuse. The Gemara says there was a rabbi called Hillel. Hillel was very poor, and still every day he went to the Bet Midrash and studied Torah, and he did not use it as an excuse. There was another rabbi called Rabbi Elazar ben Harsom. He was very rich, and he had islands and boats and all sorts of assets, and he did not use that as an excuse not to go study Torah. And the Gemara says, even if somebody has handsome and he's very, very, very good looking, he cannot use that as an excuse and say, well, listen, the Yetzer Hara got the best of me, and therefore I got busy with the Olam Hazeh. And the proof of that is Yosef HaSadiq. Yosef HaSadiq, even though he was very beautiful, he still obviously studied Torah and followed the learning. I heard once from my rabbi that La'atid Lavo, if a parent's going to say he was too poor, they're going to say Hillel. If he's going to say I was too rich, I didn't have time, they're going to say Rabbi Elazar. And if he's going to say I got caught with the Yetzer Hara, they're going to say Yosef. Hillel mechayev et ha'aniyim, Rabbi Elazar mechayev et ha'ashirim, and Yosef is mechayev those that say they have Yetzer Hara. And the pasuk says in Tehillim, Rabot machashavot belev ish, v'asat Adonai hitakum. What does it mean? When a person is going to come to Atid Lavo, he has a lot of answers. I'll tell them I was too poor. I'll tell them I was too rich. I'll tell them I had Yetzer Hara. Rabot machashavot belev ish. V'asat Hashem. But what is Hashem going to answer? He Rashi Tevot, Hillel, Yosef, Elazar. Asat Hashem, he takum. What Allah's going to answer, what do you mean? You were poorer than Hillel, you were richer than Rabbi Elazar, you were more handsome than Yosef. Asat Hashem, he takum. Furthermore, the pasuk says, Poter Mayim Reshit Medon. Atid Lavo. The first punishment that they're going to give the person is on Bitul Torah. That means they're going to ask us certain questions, Atid Lavo. Nasata v'natata be'emunah, kavata etim la-Torah. But the punishment is going to be first on bitul Torah. Furthermore, a person has to divide his hours equally. 1/3 in the study of Mikra, which is Chumash, Tanakh. 1/3 in the study of Mishnayot and Braita. And 1/3 in the study of Gemara, which is the Talmud. That's the way the Chinuch brings it down. That's the way Harambam brings it down as well. However, Tosfot in Kiddushin says that today the custom is just to study Talmud Babli. Why? Babli because it's Balul. It has Mikra, it has Mishnah and Braita, and obviously there is Gemara. So by studying the Talmud Babli, you're fulfilling and getting all the this variety of Talmud Torah. The Rama is posek like this as well in Yoreh De'ah, Siman, Resh Mem Vav. A person should not say, L'chshe'efaneh eshneh, Shemeh lo tipaneh. A person shouldn't say, of course I'm going to learn Torah when I have free time. The question is, you're never going to have free time. That means you have to steal the time. I once heard from the great Gaon Sadiq, Rabbi David Abu Hasena from Nahariya, that he said that the question they're going to ask us is, Kavata itim la Torah. Kavata can mean, did you set fixed times? But the Gemara in Mitziah learns the word koveya is to rob. Vekoveya kov'ehem nafesh. L'kvoa is to steal. They're going to ask you, did you set times for the Torah? And the person will say, I was too busy. Everybody's busy, we know that. So the question is going to be, did you steal time for Torah? That means you have to rob from the time that's busy and take it in order to study. And a person shouldn't wait till he has free time, because the Yetzer Hara will keep him preoccupied and busy, and he'll never have a chance to learn. And then the Rab gives a blessing. But if a person pushes himself to study Torah even when it's difficult, in heaven he's going to have divine assistance. And they're going to remove all the burdens and all the troubles that preoccupy a person in this world. They're going to remove any yoke of people, of taxes, of government, and all things that can take a person away from the Torah will be removed. And he has benefit. Obviously, this mitzvah applies in all places, at all times. It applies to males, but not to females. Females do not have an obligation to study Torah, as the pasuk says, "V'lemadatem otam et benechem," and the Gemara says, "Benechem velo benotechem." And therefore, since she's not obligated to learn, she's not obligated to teach as well. However, the Rav writes, it's proper that every lady should train her children to study Torah, even though she's not obligated. However, she has reward for her toil, and therefore she has an obligation, not a mandatory obligation, but it should be proper to advise her to train her children. Finally, if somebody transgresses this mitzvah, and he didn't teach his children Torah, now the Rav says over here, what's his obligation to his child? He must teach him to read, he must teach him ta'amim, so he knows how to read the Torah, and explain him every pasuk in the Humash, at least that he understands it al pi pshat. And that's a big obligation for a father. He has to teach him the 5 books, not only how to read them with ta'amim, but also to give them explanation. I saw from Rabbi Zalman in the Shulchan Aruch Harav that he says today that we have Humashim with Nikudot. You don't have to teach the kid how to read the whole Torah with Nikudot, because the olden days had Sefer Torah, so you had to teach him every word. Today we have books, so you just have to teach him Nikudot and Ta'amim, and then the kid will figure out the rest by himself. But it sounds like from the Chinuch that you have an obligation to really teach the kid the entire Torah in order that he should understand it al pi pshat. Again, Talmud Torah keneged kulam. This is a mitzvah that is a constant mitzvah that's on the person. Every free moment that he has, he should be spending it in the study of the Torah.